welcome back to another week of Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias, film critic, creator, and host of Behind the Lens, where we go behind the lens and below the line with the movers and shakers, the film and TV makers, those producers, directors, writers, actors, cinematographers, film editors, sound mixers and editors, stunt coordinators, fight choreographers, production designers, costume designers, composers, those VFX gurus, authors, and so many more. And as you all know, I love talking about movies and talking to all of the artisans who bring them to life on the big and small screens. This is a very fun episode of Behind the Lens as we're going back to nature and into the forest. That's right. It's back to the nature this week as we take a look at a fantastically informative and entertaining short documentary that you can watch right now for free. And you all know how much I love free stuff. And that documentary is Charmin Wipes Out a Forest. Yes, Charmin, the cute bear, animated bear commercials for toilet paper. You'll hear my exclusive chat with writer, director, editor STEVE MIMS and producer BRIAN RODGERS as we delve into the making of this doc and Charmin toilet paper specifically. There are some fun facts here. Might get you on a trivia night, let me tell you. Then get ready for director and editor Dan Allen, who joins me discussing his latest film from the twisted childhood universe, Bambi the Reckoning. But let's kick things off with Charmin Wipes Out a Forest. Who would have thought that someone would make any kind of film about toilet paper, let alone one about Charmin, the biggest selling brand in the United States? Charmin makes up 25% of the toilet paper market in the U.S. today. Most of us remember the early ad campaigns for Charmin with Mr. Whipple and the unforgettable, please don't squeeze the Charmin. And for quite a few years now, we've been seeing multiple TV spots and ads with the animated bear family using Charmin. But now, thanks to Steve and Brian, we find out the truth behind the toilet paper. And this is a shocking truth. Some of these things are just amazing that we learn in this documentary. Charmin Wipes Out a Forest is a comic, in-depth expose of the massive deforestation required to deliver the nation's most popular toilet paper. Although we're greeted with a comic opening to the doc and a comic ending, so it's got a great book ending here to keep you entertained, and it's only 25 minutes long, mind you. Steve and Brian deliver a shocking yet hopeful message to consumers. This is a big problem that manufacturer Procter & Gamble will never do anything about, but we can. Filmed on location in the boreal forest of Canada, and featuring an array of scientists, experts, and even members of the descendants of the Gamble family, of James Gamble, who was a founder of Procter & Gamble. The film presents a tight, entertaining story designed to reach us mainstream consumers, with a story that can easily have a happy ending. But if it does, it falls upon us to do so. I was amazed at some of the facts that we get in this short time span. How many of you knew that the boreal forest stores more than 208 billion metric tons of carbon? And how many of you know that just to make Charmin toilet paper, and only Charmin, which must be made of virgin fiber? Don't ask, it shocked me too. Do you know that more than 14 million trees are destroyed each year just to make Charmin? And, you know, if you've watched over the past few years, any of the great documentaries that have come out, Disney has put out some, there's been some Nat Geos and some others that talk about the boreal forest and it being essential to our survival. And in Canada, only 1% of Canada's old growth remains today. Now, old growth forests are those with trees that are at a minimum 150 to 250 years old. But with many of the junipers in the forest over 1,500 years old, and the pinyon trees being over 900 years old. Now, a lot of these paper companies, including P&G, they cut down trees and they replant them in like tree farms and say, hey, for every one tree we cut down, we're putting in two. Well, not only is it not sustainable for the future, as it will take over 100 years for new plantings to become old growth, but you're continually cutting down the current old growth. And what happens to the biodiversity of the wildlife, of the foliage? All of that is adversely affected. So cutting down 14 million trees so we can wipe our butts with extra soft 3-ply, 4-ply toilet paper, it makes you kind of think, maybe we should just go out and pull a few leaves off a tree and use that for toilet paper instead. Because just the damage that this does, especially in the boreal forest area, and not just here in the United States, but elsewhere, because the boreal forest is all up there near the Arctic Circle. We're essentially cutting off our noses to spite our faces. And we get into all of that. In this 25 minutes, there's so much that's imparted. And a lot of it is information that you may already know, but you don't realize the importance of it. Now, highlighting the environmental impact of P&G toilet paper production, Brian and Steve use humor to engage us. And that's something that was inspired by their last documentary on Home Depot's deforestation in Ecuador. Well, they had great success with that documentary because Home Depot stopped their deforestation in Ecuador. That won't be the same thing with Procter & Gamble. They aren't going to stop or change anything. And as we discuss the making of Charmin Wipes Out a Forest, the boys detail their extensive research on Canadian forestry practices, including clear cutting and the use of glyphosate, which is a key ingredient in Roundup herbicide, which already is the subject of quite a few class action lawsuits here in the United States. The process that is used, and you're going to see this detailed in the documentary, and since it's only 25 minutes long and it's free to watch, as soon as you finish listening to our show today, hey, take another 25 minutes and watch the documentary. It's the cyclic nature of it all and how everything is tied together. To borrow from the Lion King, it's a circle of life, and part of it is not good. But their hope is to educate all of us about sustainable alternatives and reduce P&G's market share by encouraging all of us to switch to eco-friendly products, or like one-ply toilet paper, which Scott makes. And it's also a lot cheaper. So, get ready, because this is an informative, enlightening, and fun interview with STEVE MIMS and BRIAN RODGERS talking about Charmin Wipes Out a Forest. Well, hello, Steve, and hello, Brian. How are you today?
We're fine, thank you. We're in Cincinnati.
On a road tour, a road show tour, no doubt.
Right, absolutely.
People are in for a real treat seeing this short doc. I loved it. Number one, I loved your approach at how you bring us into this. It's comedic. The comedy, it's smartly written, Steve. The comedy is great. Aurora, as the little girl, steals the show, but sets us up and gets us so involved, it's impossible to not watch the film.
Oh, that's right. Well, thank you so much for that.
It's impossible to not watch it and to not want to watch it. You make it so engaging from the start. You want to see what's coming next and what we're being informed about. And inform is something you do exceedingly well without just giving us talking heads one after another so that in 25 minutes, some people can't make it 10. So you guys did a great job here. But I'm curious, doing a documentary on where toilet paper comes from is not really something I would consider at the top of a filmmaker's list of ideas. So I'm curious how this idea came to both of you.
Well, Brian and I worked together on a documentary that we filmed in Ecuador about Home Depot. And Home Depot was buying plywood that's made out of an ancient forest in Ecuador. And Brian put together a big campaign to convince Home Depot not to do that. And so we made a documentary, and we put it online. And immediately, not immediately, but it got results. They did not want that to be online, and they didn't take it down. And they had a big dialogue with Brian. He can tell you all about that. But that was the first kind of environmental film that we did. And I've worked with Brian before in Austin, Texas, on different films about municipal issues in Austin. Mm-hmm. And my background is, some feature-length documentaries, a couple of feature-length fiction films, and television commercials. So I kind of worked all the time. But I was so lucky to get to meet Brian and a handful of really bright people in Austin who were very concerned about what was happening in the city, and also, in Brian's case, what's happening with the environment everywhere, really. And so we went down and shot that. We had a great time, and the film turned out great. And so when this issue arose about the Boreal, that was the next thing that we moved on to. And that was also a blast. We had a great time shooting it and traveling up to Canada and shooting in the studio with the scripted parts. But yeah, that's how that originated.
The important thing about that is when that Home Depot called me and wanted to have a meeting, so I went to Atlanta and brought a famous conservation biologist, a satellite expert, and showed Home Depot that their supplier was eating out the heart of the Ecuadorian Chocó, where there's only 3% of the rainforest left. Mm-hmm. And to their credit, they turned to their supplier and said, how soon can you stop sourcing from this area? So that was like a victory, and Home Depot did the right thing. So then we had turned our attention to Charmin because we had a connection with the NRDC, Shelley Vineyard, about, well, did you know that they're grinding up the Canadian forest to make wood pulp, and we're flushing it down the toilet? And it's like, geez, First they go, well, how bad can it get? We're making toilet paper out of the rainforest, and now we're just, we were making plywood out of the rainforest, and now we're making toilet paper. So it went from bad to worse. So now we're going after Charmin and Bounty.
Wow. Well, number one, I'm happy to say I don't use either one of those products.
Very good.
Charmin is way too expensive, number one. Number two, you don't need quilted 3-ply, 4-ply tissue to wipe your butt. As Charmin's own commercials show us, they have done some of the bear commercials where the bear is wiping his butt on the bark of a tree. Now, I see the irony in that. I don't know if a lot of people do, but we're killing the trees to make the toilet paper that the animated bears are wiping their butt with, when out in the forest, they're just wiping their butt on the tree. So I find that thread really fun.
That's right. I think that's why Steve named it the film Charmin Wipes Out the Forest, because that's why it's on YouTube, and that's really why it's so germane to the topic.
I'm curious, how did you come up with the format that you chose for this one? Because it is so unique, and your comedic entree works so well.
Well, in the research that we did before we started shooting, one of the things that we found out is that Procter & Gamble invented the soap opera. Mm-hmm. And so, in a documentary, there's a certain amount of expository material that you need to give to people. And so I thought that, that's a way to, in the beginning, show people like a little educational film about how paper is made. And then it's a way to engage them in a way that's surprising in the beginning, where we made our own little soap opera, and then it evolves into that. And that's part of the whole philosophy of the film. What we tried to do with this film is not make it depressing and not make it boring. And because, if you have the option of spending 26 minutes, do you want to spend it watching a film about toilet paper, or would you rather watch an episode of Seinfeld. And it's like, that's kind of the choice. It's like, how do you make something that normal people who would never want to sit still for a film like this actually sit still for them? And so, yeah, I'm so happy that you felt that way about the beginning, because that was the idea, was like we had the little channel changing, all of a sudden there's a car crash, a shark, and all the stuff, and then it tumbles right into the beginning of the film, so that hopefully you can't extract yourself. And then the way it's written, it's odd enough where these corporate people interject themselves into a romantic dinner that it hopefully catches people off guard, and then that flows right into the rest of it. So that we had scripted and shot that material in Austin even before we went to Canada, because we knew that's how everyone to get into it, and then the ending part that we use at the end. And yeah, I mean, a lot of films that take on a topic like this, in the end, you feel terrible.
Yeah.
Because we have so many terrible problems that seem that as a viewer, you watch it and you just feel hopeless. Like, my little contribution to solving this problem means nothing. And in this case, we're saying that this is different, because this is a consumer issue. Like, and we're trying to make a case to them, like, this is one place where all you have to do is buy something else. And if you buy something else, if you don't buy from the manufacturer that owns 25% of the toilet paper market in North America, that has a consequence. And it's easy. It's just not hard. You can find paper that's made out of bamboo or out of recycled, or you can put in a bidet. All that stuff is available to people, but they never really had it explained to them in a way that's like, oh, I didn't. People don't realize they're complicit in a problem like this. And once they do, we're trying to make the case. It's like, you can feel better about yourself. You can actually make a difference, because we don't want people to feel bad. We want them to feel positive and share this and have the net result be an environmental win for everybody. Right? It's a win because you're not part of it, and it's no real challenge for people to do it.
Well, I have to say that bookending it with comedy, it's so creative and fresh and engaging. So much so that when this documentary ended, I'm like, okay, well, now, are the paper towels done any differently? Are they using virgin fiber for the paper towels or non-virgin fiber? So now I want to know more. I want to see another one, because this one is so good.
Well,
and this,
we're on a roll, you know.
You are, in more ways than one. How long was the research process here? Because you have a lot of information packed in here, and you have a lot of reputable people that you speak with and pepper throughout this. So I'm curious about the research process and how scripted or structured the main part of the doc was outside of the comedic parts.
Yeah, so there was a lot of understanding about how Canadian forestry works. So I listened to scores of hours of Canadian forestry podcasts, and I have people that I know that are deep into conservation biology, and was able to score some really great interviews with various people. And it's always good to know your subject better than your enemy. I'll call them enemy, at least from the other side, because I know that there's a lot of foresters and people say, hey, you just cut it down and it'll grow back. And you go, yeah, well, you cut down a biodiverse forest where all the critters are living, and then you replace it with a monocrop, basically a plantation. Because what happens after they clear cut is that they burn all the slash. So they haul the trees to the side of the road, and they chip them in chip trucks to take to the pulp mill. But on the clear-cut land, they come in, they burn all the slash, because they don't want all those branches and stuff to interfere with the plowing. So they actually plow the forest floor, and then they spray the whole field with glyphosate. I mean, thousands of hectares at a time, and because they want to kill off any competition to the conifer, the crop tree, the tree that makes them money when it regrows. So they replace a viable forest with basically a plantation, and then the foresters try to tell you, oh, well, it'll all grow back. Well, okay, this is where 3 to 5 billion birds come from Canada, 3 to 5 billion with a B, as the Audubon guy says. And they fly down and they populate our backyards and all the way down to the tropics. And so when you convert these biodiverse forests into plantation-like crops, that takes away their home. And so the big overview is we need to stop doing this, making toilet paper out of virgin tree fiber. There are so many other options. We have 100 million acres of corn under cultivation in the U.S. So all those corn stalks, all that fiber, really it's just fiber we're looking for, fiber to wipe your bum. 50 million acres of wheat. And then we have, 60 million tons of landfill paper and paperboard. So the solutions are out there, but these companies like Procter & Gamble don't want to change what they're doing. They have a lot of sunk cost, and they'd rather fend off any environmental groups. They've been circling them for the past 25 years trying to get them to change.
Well, and this is what I found very, very interesting, guys, is the way you interweave all of this information and you take us from point A to point B. Yes, we see the trees disappearing, and then we start hearing about burning it out and then spraying with essentially the Roundup, which they've said don't use at your house, which itself is the subject of many class actions for being cancer-causing. So you weave all of this so beautifully. I'm curious how challenging that was for you. And did you have that scripted out, or did that come to you in the editing process?
Well, there was no script for that part of the film, and we did our research, so we knew what the process was, and Brian found the people and know the people that we got in camera. They were experts in the field. And so, but there's no scripts of what we did in post was to make an assembly of the interviews. And what I tend to do is take one interview at a time and cut it in half, try to get rid of as much as possible, keeping much germane, and then tightening all that up, and then cutting each individual interview, and then building a timeline with all the, a lot of times in the interviews you ask the same subjects, the same questions. So they all have their version of how this happens. And then in editing, you just find a person who did the best job and use them and have them hand it off to the next person. And you did that enough, and it becomes one seamless presentation of it in a way that's interesting and not tiresome. And I'm really an old school editor in terms of really trying to help people taking out huge gaps that people have, and natural digressions. People will start telling you one thing and then they'll digress and then they'll come back. And I really try to being honest with what they're saying, the same way a journalist would in terms of preparing a quote for a print piece, and helping them say it more efficiently so that it happens quickly, and it's very fluid. And so, that's always fun for me, and is to be able to put that in an order and work on it until it articulates what can be a very tedious thing into something that's not. And I don't have attention deficit disorder, so I'm able to sit for hours at a time and cut like that. And I'll literally look at it, and it's been 4 hours, but I just get in it, but it's fun. And that's really one of the best parts of editing documentaries is being able to lose yourself in it and figure out. Yeah, and then, as my old editing teacher told me, the footage speaks to you, right? You hear one phrase, and that phrase becomes the thing that links you to the next bit. And so if you can do that well, then it really works well. And so I'm always cognizant of my tone. Like when I watch pieces, I am aware of the viewer's time. Right, I don't want to waste their time, and I do want it to change in a way that keeps them engaged. Right, it's just we don't wear people out by the time we get to the end. So I hope that people want to know more in the end and have enough, that there's enough there for them to be able to confidently talk to other people about the issue and share it. And again, we're trying to make a film that people who have never watched a film like this will actually watch. And so that was the objective.
Maybe I missed it. I've watched this 3 times already, but maybe I missed it. You do not mention global warming and environment. You talk about biodiversity, but you don't mention those phrases of environment and global warming.
Right. Yeah, that's really intentional. And for this reason, people have had the global warming issue put in front of them now for a very long time.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the threat of nuclear devastation was before the Berlin Wall fell. Mm-hmm. Not the Berlin, but where that was the thing that where people now, the new thing is global warming. And we feel that, not to say, I mean, it's super important. And the beautiful thing about the film deals with that in a way that's productive. Like we're trying to get people to do something that is going to help with the carbon issue. But our feeling is that we don't need to mention that again because people are already up to their eyeballs with the concern about that. Mm-hmm. And we also don't want to trigger people. We don't want to trigger people and have them feel like, okay, this is one more thing that's just awful. And so we were very careful to make the language about the devastation to the forest and to the animals and to the people who are poisoned by mercury poisoning and the birds, so that, not that birds are also animals, obviously, but to make it germane to them in that way, because our objective is not different from the people who talking about global warming. It's the same, but our approach is not to. And actually, it does come up. Like there are a couple places in the film because of the quotes we have in it where that is on the screen. But yeah, we feel like our job is not to pick a fight with people about that. I mean, there's some people that want to argue with about that. Well, this is not an argument about this. This is an argument about this is a really, really dumb thing.
Right.
And
that's right.
It's a dumb thing that if you take this step, you're going to help with that.
And since Charmin has 25% of the North American toilet paper market, that's at least 75 million people putting the pressure on the Canadian forest. Mm-hmm. And this is non-political. I mean, this is just everybody wipes their bottom. And people love wilderness. People love to think that the next generation will have the same awe of nature that we had. So it crosses party lines. We don't want to be pigeonholed as some libtards or environmentalists. It's like, look, no, we all benefit from having these intact mammal populations and forests and the birds. And all we have to do is one simple thing, and that's switch your brand of toilet paper, and that will go a long way.
Now, did you get any impression at all in the making of this documentary that P&G would actually switch how they make toilet paper and stop killing the boreal forest?
No, they're not going to do it. They don't have any recycled product, so they're married to this process. So really, what we're trying to do is to go after, to advocate and let people know that they should change, and that will hurt Procter & Gamble, their bottom line.
Yeah.
So we're not going to negotiate with Procter & Gamble and because they may come back and say, well, we're going to have a target date of 2030 or whatever. And we'll say, well, we're long past that. I mean, we're in the middle of an ecological collapse in many respects. So we don't have time for these, targets and et cetera, which is what people call talk and log, right? So what we're going to do is just let people know, and hopefully we can reduce their market share.
Yeah, one of the things is like the Home Depot film, we went out of our way in that film not to vilify Home Depot because it's a giant company, and we were after one product. And this is the same thing with Procter & Gamble. Like, I buy their toothpaste, I buy their detergent. And it's just not about anything other than trying to make the argument to them that it's in everybody's best interest for them to find a different way to manufacture the toy. And that's it. There's no point in vilifying them, even though maybe they deserve it, maybe they don't. Like, we've had people tell us that they are actually good employers, and they're not the worst corporation in the world. So that's a whole separate thing, and I think that's a mistake sometimes that people make, is like painting with a broad brush and getting into it. It's like, there's no point.
Yeah.
Procter & Gamble's not going away. We don't want them to go away. We just want them to do a better job of what they're doing that doesn't have all this detrimental stuff. So we're trying to lay out the best case that we know for why this should be changed. And so hopefully that will work in the long run.
How did you determine who to interview and who to include here? And were you surprised to be able to get Jim and June Epstein as descendants of the original James Gamble, who was one of the founders of P&G?
It took a little, it took some connections and some cajoling, but everybody's heart is into this issue. The people, that we contacted, so it wasn't a big leap for them to link up with us and agree to the interview.
Wow. Well, what would you, now that this is done and you're out on your road show and you're taking this around to people, what would you say was the most challenging aspect of bringing Charmin Wipes Out a Forest to life?
It wasn't really that hard. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're only 2 weeks into it, so we're ramping up and we're getting more and more views, a couple hundred views a day. So we're trying to get some national media and more podcasts like this and some. And so really, we know it's going to be a long slog, and we're prepared for it.
As I said at the top, you guys have done an incredible job with this. It is beyond entertaining and educational, and it's fun to watch. And I still want a sequel to tell us about paper towels now.
Well,
okay.
Maybe we'll start working on that.
Yeah, when you finish your road show on toilet paper.
All right.
So, guys, thank you so much. This has been very enlightening and fun getting to talk to you about Charmin and Procter & Gamble and the Boreal Forest, which people want to learn more about the Boreal Forest. There are so many great documentaries that talk about it, unpoliticized, just like your documentary here. And as I watched this, I thought of several. It's like, oh, well, this would be a nice piggyback for people. They can sit at home, they can watch one, they can learn about, and then learn about the other and see the processes. So you really tapped into something important here. And I can't wait to see what you give me next.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having us on your show. We really, really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And I hope we get to chat again in the future.
All right.
Yeah, we'll bother you.
You can bother me anytime about anything. You just tell Danielle can give you all of my contact info, and you can bother me to your heart's content.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that was Steve Mims and BRIAN RODGERS discussing their documentary short, Charmin Wipes Out a Forest. You can, as I said, you can watch the documentary right now on YouTube for free in the comfort of your own living room. Just go to www.charminkillsforest.org. That's www.charminkillsforest.org. And as you hear them mention in our conversation, they're currently on a 23-city roadshow tour across the country with their Charmin Wipes Out a Forest video truck. So be on the lookout for when the video truck is coming to your town, and you can get that information on the website. I do know the truck is going to be in the New York City area on the 23rd, so later this week. So check that out. Be on the lookout for it. And now, we're going to go deep into the part of the forest that hasn't been cut down with Bambi the Reckoning. And, oh, how I love these twisted childhood universe films. How many of you have seen Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 1 and 2? If you haven't, get on it. And what about Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, or Mary Had a Little Lamb, or Simon Phillips' Mousetrap? Those aren't part of the TCU, but they are all of the same vein. Taking our beloved characters and childhood fantasies and doing something untoward and evil to them. If you've seen any of these, I know you're going to love Bambi the Reckoning. Now, the official synopsis for Bambi the Reckoning reads, after a mother and son get in a car wreck, they soon become hunted by Bambi, a mutated, grief-stricken deer on a deadly rampage seeking revenge for the death of his mother. Now, if you haven't read the original book by Felix Salten, his 1923 book, and all you have as reference is Disney's exquisite animated film, you all know the scene. When Bambi's mother gets shot, there's raging fire, Bambi is alone. Well, I know I've wondered, and I'm sure many of you have, since Disney's Bambi, what would happen to Bambi when he grew up? Would he seek revenge on hunters or on man in general? Directed and edited by Dan Allen and written by Rhys Warrington, based on Felix Salten's original 1923 novel, Bambi: Life in the Woods. I love that book. And I encourage you, if you have kids, go find a copy and get it and read it to them. And even if you're an adult and you haven't read it and all you know is the Disney movie, and now this, Bambi the Reckoning, get the book and read it. And this is where Rhys does a beautiful job here at adapting the book for Bambi the Reckoning. Because the film maintains the original book's themes of family, love, hardship, plus there is some 21st century subtext included on the horrors of man or man towards nature. And I would love to say more, but I don't want to spoil it for you. You know I don't like to throw spoilers out there unless I absolutely have to. And I don't have to, but I've already given you some clues in some of the word choices I've used here, so maybe you're picking up on some of this. But as Dan and I break down the film, he highlights the casting challenges, particularly with child actor Tom Mulhern, who is incredible. He plays young Benji. He is the young boy who's in the car with his mother, who is beautifully played by Roxanne McKee. And the mother-son dynamic is very, very key in this film. And one of the challenges, as I know other directors I've spoken with and you've heard them talk to me about, the challenges of working with children. Because this was shot in the UK. They still have the same similar child labor laws to what we have here in the United States with actors. And they're limited to the number of hours a day that they can shoot. At what time is the latest that they can shoot? Now, bear in mind, this film was shot at night for night, the whole film. And Benji is in easily 75% of the film, 75% of the film. So when you're shooting the whole film at night, now luckily they shot it in the winter, so the sun set and it got dark earlier. So you had a 5 or 6 o'clock where it was getting dark. But by 11 o'clock, bam, you've got to have, poor Tom has to be gone. So this is one of the big challenges for a film like this, and also safety. He also breaks down the logistical difficulties of shooting at night in freezing temperatures, but also the benefits in creating this world of the forest by shooting at night. Winter in a forest, you get a winter moon or no moon, you get a pure black and pure grays is your background. You don't have that blue-black inkiness that is beautiful. But here, having the straight black night and the shades of gray, it's stunning. Plus, this isn't a Hallmark movie where it's being shot in July and everybody's bundled up in winter coats and clothes for a Christmas movie, but you see no breath coming out of them. And as any of us know who have been back east or in any snow country, when you breathe and it is cold, like below freezing, you have mist, you've got breath coming out of you, as the warm air hits the cold air. And we see that here. So that adds another ambient layer to the visual element of the film. But one of the things that really impressed me, and you're going to hear Dan talk about this, is the sound design. As not only does it celebrate silence, but also the ambient sounds of the forest. Owls, birds, breaking branches, leaves, little animals, bunnies hopping on the ground on the crunchy leaves and the cold broken leaves in winter. But this creates a haunting atmosphere, which composer Greg Berkhamshaw then incorporates into his score. So a lot of his score has these ambient sounds in it. And just to give you a point of reference, Greg also is a composer on Peter Pan's Nightmare, and also another film by Dan that's very good, that he directed. It Came From Below. So I like Greg's work, and I like hearing it here. And of course, being the editor, Dan also details his editing process here, and the difficulty and the challenges in finding that balance of tension and hitting the emotional beats for maximum emotional impact. And there's more. We cover it all. So, and I love talking with Dan. And I can't wait till we get to chat again on whatever project he does next. But take a listen as director and editor Dan Allen discusses Bambi the Reckoning.
Hi, Debbie. How's it going?
Hi, Dan. It's going great. How's it going with you?
Very good, thank you. Very good. We just, the new trailer just dropped, which is very exciting. So, we're excited for people to see that.
I can't wait to take a look at that. So, Dan, this movie, number one, I'm a huge fan of all of these twisted childhood universe films. I can't get enough of them. You guys can't make them fast enough for me.
We're trying. We are trying to make them fast, but without losing. We don't want them to be rubbish, as well.
That's just it. You don't want it to be some D-level genre piece that you just slap together with scotch tape and glue. I got to tell you, what really stood out for me with this is, I know it's based on Felix Salten's book from 1923. The themes in that book of parents, children, family love, hardship. Your mom can't always answer the questions for you. Neither can your dad. And sometimes bad things happen to good deer or good people. Sometimes bad things happen to really bad people too. But you kept the heart of the story. which is so important. I mean, right away, for anybody that has ever seen the Disney animated masterpiece, the first thing you know is this is revenge. Bambi's grown up. This is revenge for his mother being killed. And you take us on that journey, that emotional journey. But then you also throw in, now we have even more cruelties by man to Mother Nature and all the little, the wooded creatures, including Thumper, or Thumper's offspring. My God, Dan,
Did you like him? Did you like the rabbits?
Oh my God. And you also have a scene in there that automatically sent me over to Monty Python's Killer Rabbits. And, yeah, from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So you tapped into that comedy. But it is the heart that you keep, the essence of Salton's original book of Bambi Life in the Woods, which I have loved since I was a child. But I'm curious for you, how challenging was it? Because I know Reese wrote this one and is one of the producers along with Scott. How challenging was it to keep that heart, that childlike innocence of parental child love on the human and animal scale? Because you show us both in here. But you also gore it up beautifully. So how did you manage to, what were your primary concerns as you and Reese were working on this to keep that heart and innocence?
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for all the kind words. It was a real sort of passion and focus to try and give the film as much heart as possible. I know it was important to Scott as well, as the other producer, to honor the fact that it's a very sad, emotional, and thematically rich source text. And we really wanted to sort of lean into what makes Bambi special, even though this is, a horror version or a weird sequel, however you want to frame it. It still needs to represent Bambi. We're technically the first ever live-action adaptation of Bambi.
Yes.
And we wanted it to feel, thematically rich. A lot of it was working with Reese. So as it happens, it's actually another Reese. There's two Reeses with very similar names. So you got Frank Wardfield, but then you got Warrington. So Reese Warrington wrote the script. And when I came on board, my sort of angle was sort of really sort of honing in on this like loss of innocence and sort of just realizing your parents aren't superheroes, and taking the Benji on that journey. So every time we spoke, it was like, how can we cement that character journey? How can we challenge him more? How can we give him the hardest time possible? And my suggestion was to add in the father character, which the father wasn't originally in the scripts before I came on board, so I wanted to sort of bring that component, and because I thought that's just going to shatter his world. And then we wanted to make sure it was reflected in the animals as well. You have got this whole like parent-child relationship from Bambi to Bambi's child, and then also from the humans to their children. And you're sort of in a higher perspective looking down, so as in like, you're looking at it from the parent's perspective, but also from the kid's perspective. Both of them are having a hard time with this relationship of navigating a very sort of challenging, dark world, whilst also trying to steer their own interpersonal relationships well, and it's really hard to do that. I think when, no matter what you try and do, life throws these curveballs to make it really hard. Like, Bambi just wants to be a good parent, but then obviously life gets in the way, or humanity gets in the way. And Zana wants to be a good mum, but nature gets in the way, or the father gets in the way. There's all these sort of components that we're trying to sort of keep in play. And hopefully it sort of pays off and works in a way that leaves you with a really sort of different feeling to the other films in the franchise, while still delivering on all the fun and the gore but also has this sort of, real strong emotional component. And I think that is just, it was so strong in the script, it was hard to sort of, miss that, we just, as long as we knew we shot the script and the emotional beats correctly, then it was going to really shine through in the finished film.
Well, and it really does. And I am the first one to admit here, in that third act, as we're nearing the end of the third act, and there's Benji, and he has a woodland creature in his arms. And I got to tell you, my eyes got misty, very misty, wondering which way this was going to go. Because you could have taken this in multiple directions here. But as he's holding this little creature, protecting it, it's like my heart melted, my eyes teared up. So you definitely hit the emotional beats here, Dan.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you.
A big part of this film, in addition to the incredible CGI and the whole creature of Bambi, is casting Tom Mulhern as Benji. How difficult was it to cast him? Because Benji and his mother, so Tom and Roxanne, you had to get them right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was super tough, and it's really tough with kids because it's such a tricky age where they're sort of starting to learn to be self-aware. So you get a bunch of actors that are really good as child actors, like under the age of 10, but the moment they get to around the age of like 9, 10, 11, 12, they're sort of growing a sense of self-awareness. And then suddenly with that comes self-consciousness and suddenly their acting ability starts to disappear because they don't want to get things wrong, or they're embarrassed, or they have a lot more shame, or they just can't quite commit wholeheartedly. When they're younger, you can just say, be scared, and then they are scared. Whereas when they're slightly older, they sort of can overthink what being scared is, or what it looks like, what it's meant to look like. And honestly, I mean, Benji was the last person we saw. We did a casting call. We had a bunch of tapes. I think we had hundreds of tapes. And then we had a handful of kids that we saw. And then we got an email from a representative from one of the kids being like, oh, do you mind seeing this other kid as well? And he literally, it was right at the end of the day, and we were like, oh man, we don't really think we found him. And then this extra kid that the casting director, or not the casting director, like the representative from this like young children's agency, just sort of threw in at the last second. He comes up and he just smashes it, like knocks it out of the park. And I remember, like, Nikki, who plays Mary, she was actually with me doing the auditions. She very kindly volunteered to just read the other lines, and he left the room, and we both just sort of, like, open mouth turned to look at each other, and we were just like, thank goodness. And it felt like, we were trying to play it cool. We were like, okay, we'll email him tomorrow. We'll email his station or whatever. But it turned out it was actually the casting lady, it was her own son, so she represents loads of child actors, and she just sort of noticed, oh, maybe my own son would be good for this. He's a very good actor, he's been in loads of TV shows, but it was her, that's why she added him last second, because she was just like, oh, maybe Tom could do this. And thank goodness she did, because he hadn't originally taped for it, so we hadn't really seen him, I don't think. It was great. It was really cool. It was really cool. And, he's the youngest one on set as well, so it was a lot for him to do. But, I mean, I think he had the best time because, one day he'd be walking away from an explosion behind him, and the next day he's, like, crawling out of an upside-down car, and the next thing he's driving a vehicle, there's all these things that I just, like, must sound so cool to turn up at school the next day and be like, you'll never guess what I did yesterday.
Yeah.
I got to stroll away from this humongous explosion behind it. I feel like all his friends wouldn't believe any of the things he said he got to do.
So, and he got to be,
great.
In the opening where we've got the cab driver and the taxi gets flipped over down a hill. So Tom actually got to be in the car and do that.
So he didn't actually drive, but he did have to sit at the steering wheel. I think he had to do a lot of like pretending to. And then what he did get to do in the vehicle is we had everyone shaking the vehicle. You know when he's in the back of the vehicle when Bambi's smashing into the car? So we had people throwing all these like light objects all over them, and they had to like swing from like side to side and throw themselves across the camper van. So that's the sort of the stunts he was doing. It wasn't in a moving vehicle, no. But yeah, that was good fun. And the moment we said cut, you know, and they were covered in like all these fake apples and fruit and plates and stuff. You just see like the biggest smiles across all their faces. It was just really cool.
Especially a kid. Now, who came first, Tom or Kat or Roxanne as Benji's mother? Because that chemistry is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think they were great together. I think Roxanne was first. So, because that was sort of like the main billing, as it were. That was sort of a big discussion between me, Scott, Reith, and ITN as well. So then once we had her, then we sort of like built it around her, made sure like, because, you know, they got to look like a family and like aesthetically and stuff. So yeah, it was Roxanne first, and then sort of the hunt began for Benji, and then we obviously had to build that other separate family as well, the extended family. But they very much felt like their own units compared to sort of Tom and Roxanne.
Mm-hmm. I love the chemistry between the two of them, and it increases, and you really see the mother-son, the mother-child dynamic intensify.
Yeah.
Especially as Benji starts realizing that, hey, maybe mom is right about a few things.
Yeah.
That's always revelatory. Now, once you've got your cast in place, you're shooting. This whole thing, did you shoot any days at all? Was everything night for night?
Yeah, so the first day, I think we started filming at around 3 or 4 in the afternoon, maybe 2 in the afternoon. But it was middle of winter, so it very quickly got dark. So it was dark by like 4 or 5. So I think we had a couple of hours before it got dark on day 1, and then the rest of the film was all nighttime. There was a similar situation. We had one other day where we filmed some of the hunters going through the trees, like the hunter's first scene with the pheasant. That was sort of just before nightfall, which adds this whole extra pressure, because the longer you take to shoot it, the darker and darker it's going to get whilst you're filming. And if it gets too dark, then the footage won't work together. It will be too visually distinct. So we only had a couple of scenes like that, and the rest of it was all night shoots in England forests at -3 degrees Celsius at middle of the night, which adds a whole load of complications as well with child licensing as well. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but we could only film with Tom essentially until about 11 p.m.
Yep.
So not only was the whole film shooting at night, but we only had one of our main actors for half a day every day. So we had to shoot all of Tom's scenes. And bless Roxanne, I mean, she did such a good job. She was literally having to act opposite either nothing.
Oh my gosh.
Or what's it called? We our 2 camera assistants. So Jimmy and Nina were they're like quite short people, and so we would put Benji's coat on them, and it would fit them fine, and they would often have to stand in for Tom, and Roxanne would have to deliver these incredibly emotional performances and like look at them, and you know it was tough on her, it really was, and I felt bad, but I mean, there was just nothing we could do.
Yeah.
We had to get his shots done before we lost him entirely, you know. And if there was another way to schedule it, we would have done, especially... But I think we had him for some of the key emotional bits for her. But yeah, she definitely had a load of emotional heavy lifting to do without really anyone there, which was really tough. But yeah, it was the only way to do it, because that's what happens when your whole film's set at night and it's got kids in it. So.
That's exactly what happens. Now, because you're shooting night for night, I have to say this really does work to your advantage, because we're not just seeing actors bundled up in down jackets and heavy sweaters and everything. By shooting at night in the cold, number one, we're getting a truer sense of black on black in the night. in the forest.
Yeah.
But we're also getting the warm air coming out of everybody's mouths when they're talking.
Mm.
So it adds another layer of authenticity.
Yeah.
And quote unquote reality to this world that you are building. And I think it works beautifully. And your DP, Vince, did a beautiful job shooting this. And I love some of the blocking that the two of you did, particularly in the quote unquote lab. And we have one of our hunters and staring down into cages. Beautiful Dutching angles. Beautiful Dutching angles that really are showing us that the power play of the hunters. But then it also switches. And because Bambi is so large, we get the reverse perspective in many instances of even adults. They have to look up at Bambi. Yeah. So Bambi is a looming, fierce force. So just beautifully done, Dan. I'm really thrilled with that.
I appreciate that.
But the first thing that stood out to me when the film starts, number one, is that animated opening that's lovely.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
Your sound design and sound editing in this film, the way you use silence is fantastic. Talk to me about working with your sound designers and editors for this sonic palette, because it really is wonderfully done.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a big aspect of the film. Like, I kind of knew how I wanted the film to sound literally from reading the script the first time, you know. I just had this sense that music was going to be really powerful, but it's going to be used at just the right moments only. And actually what we're going to do is use the diegetic sound, use the actual sounds that are happening in the film, almost in a musical way themselves, and mix them in a way that's really rich. Like, you know, the car attack scene, I love the sound work in that. So Brian Hatton, who is sort of our lead sound designer, I've worked with a bunch of times on a bunch of different movies. He is so good. And, you know, he's got a team as well with him at Lightyear Studios. So there's Rob as well, who's amazing, Olga, and there's a bunch of others there. And they're all got their own sort of focus of Foley and stuff. And yeah, I just knew I wanted to not sort of cover up all this, the richness of this attack or Bambi with music. And I wanted that, especially that first car attack. At one point I was going to delay any music until much later on in the film. Besides obviously the opening animation, I was thinking, I just want to experience the world. I want to hear the sounds of the forest. And we were also really particular as well. There's no sounds of any owls or birds in the forest, because our thinking was Bambi and the rabbit and potentially what other mutated creatures there are, they have killed all the remaining wildlife because they've eaten them. So we really wanted it to sound like a dead forest. There's still insects, they're still around, but with the exception of insects, there's very much almost no audible sounds of life. But instead what you get is these beautifully rich, like creaking trees, and sort of, really turning the forest into a character in and of itself. And then the music by Greg Birkenshaw, like that comes in as well at the key moments when we want to sort of emotionally push something. But really we wanted to immerse the characters and the audience in the world, and doing that with, the actual sound design. And we worked really hard to make sure that, you know, Bambi's footsteps really thump the ground, and we really sort of shake the seats that you're in if you're in the cinema. When the gunshots hit, you know, making sure they feel really explosive, and just making sure everything is as rich as possible, and really puts you in the shoes of those characters. And also building up a beautiful sound palette for Bambi, so that we can really express different things from Bambi at different times, but it all sort of feeling like the same creature. So there's loads of different things in there. There's literally a human voice in Bambi. There's like a human growl that's in there. There's real deer sounds, and then there's also sort of these bigger, more dinosaur-like creature sounds in there as well, that sort of all create the overall character of Bambi through sound.
And I love the breath sounds of Bambi are fantastic. Just fantastic.
Yeah, they're cool.
And the breath conveys so much of Bambi's mindset how he's breathing and as drool is dripping from him. It just beautifully, beautifully done, giving us a fully encompassing oral soundscape. Now, you were also editor on this little gem. So,
yeah.
Were you editing as you shot in this very brief 16-day shoot? Did you wait till you had all your footage? Because then, of course, you had to get your CGI footage and whatnot to plug in. What was your editing process like? And especially to maintain a balance between the heart and the horror.
That's a great question. I mean, with the editing, I didn't get a chance to cut it until after we wrapped. And then I had another short film project that I was on board as an editor that I was already booked on. So I literally had to wait like a couple of weeks. But I couldn't help myself. I think I'd started cutting Bambi in the evenings whilst on this other short film. Started to sort of build the film. I think I just worked through from beginning to end, from scene one, and just cut it all the way through to the end, it was great. You know, I think because I knew it was the biggest film I'd ever done, there was a bit of pressure of making sure I'd really had absorbed every single frame that was shot. So I knew that what I ended up with was quite simply the best version I could possibly put together. And especially when you're editing it by yourself, you do get those feedback from people of like what's working and what's not, or like this scene's not having the intended emotional effect. But what you don't get is someone else being like, oh, but what about this bit of footage you have? What about this? So you're very much sort of in your own world, like in the dark a little bit, being like, maybe this clip will give the intended effect. So it actually was quite a long process. And because the VFX took like a year to complete, I had a lot of tinkering time because the sound team were then working on Pinocchio, so they weren't ready to start on Bambi till after, sorry, not Pinocchio, on Peter Pan. So they weren't ready to start on it until after, which meant I had more and more time to just tinker on the edit. So I've never spent so many months just sort of being like, what if this was shorter? What if this was shorter? So it really is refined and refined and refined. And there's loads of actual extra scenes, by the way, that build out some of the emotional heart of some of the other characters that are the deleted scenes, so they will be on either a DVD or a Blu-ray somewhere.
Yes.
Which is really nice. You'll get to see, you'll find out a bit more about how some of the other characters tick. But yeah, I think I just wanted to make sure if we hadn't been scared for too long, let's set some tension, you know. I really wanted to always feel tense and you anticipate something scary is going to happen, but also at the same time, are these emotional moments, are they given the space they need to land? They shouldn't just feel forced in. It should all feel like a cohesive thing and everything gets the time it wants, whilst also it feels like a roller coaster. So it's just snipping, cutting like a couple of frames off here, a couple of frames off here. But then always asking the question, have we cut too much? Are we now not feeling what we're meant to feel with this particular moment, you know? And it's always, I always sort of look at it from like, is the audience feeling what I want them to feel at this moment? So we did some feedback screenings and got people's feedback to see how they felt about the different characters at different points and stuff, which is just so helpful to help sort of, get the film to its final form and make sure it's as effective as possible. Like a lot of people's effort and time goes into it, even though it's just my name on the editing credit. There's actually so many people that feed into that process to make it the best it can be.
Well, you definitely turned out quite a product here. I am mad about this film, Bambi the Reckoning.
Oh.
I want to see more Bambi, or son of Bambi, or daughter of Bambi. Let's have a really pissed off daughter.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So I hope you continue in this twisted childhood universe, Dan, because
Thank you.
You do really well.
Oh, thank you. That really means a lot. It really does. Thank you.
Oh, Dan, thank you so much. And I hope we get to chat again in the future.
Me too. Oh, please. That'd be lovely. Honestly, this has been so nice.
Well, you go have a great rest of your day, night, whatever we're looking at now. And hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later when we talk again.
Yeah, you bet. That'd be really nice. Thank you so much. Thanks for chatting with me.
Bye-bye. And that was Dan Allen talking about Bambi the Reckoning, which is in theaters this Friday, July 25th. So, check it out. You've probably already seen the big blockbusters. You've already seen Superman. You've already seen Jurassic Park, Reborn. Check this out. It's got some nice production values. I loved watching it. I love seeing where Reese took this story with the script, and I love how it's updated to incorporate some of man's horrors towards nature in the world today. So I highly recommend it. But that is all the time we have today for our trip into the forest. So, make sure to join me next Monday, because one of my all-time faves, Simon Phillips, is back. And this time, for the first time, his cinematic partner in crime, Jamie Bailey, is joining him as they talk about their new film, The Omro Heist. I know, it's not a horror film. I wish it was Mousetrap too. But they're keeping the secrets of that so tight under wraps, I can't even get it out of Simon. But no, this is a heist film with a few interesting twists to it. And it's really enjoyable. And it's always fun when Simon and I start yakking. And with Jamie on board too, yeah, it's a laugh factory. So make sure you tune in next Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube, on your favorite podcast channels, on the website. And you'll get to hear Simon, Jamie, and I talk about the Omro Heist. But this week, go see Bambi the Reckoning on Friday. As soon as you finish listening here, hop onto YouTube and check out Charmin Wipes Out the Forest. It's only 25 minutes, folks. Well worth your time. So, until next week, I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.